Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples with the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David. How you doing tonight?
Good. Late game, Bruce, so I had like an hour to do my daily stretching before the game. Yeah, I wish I'd started that about 30 years ago, but better late than never.
Stretching away.
Oh, yeah, for the last 2 years, it really helps with hockey. Really,
Good.
Yeah, no, I recommend it to anyone. It is absolutely fantastic exercise, especially I'm in my 60s now. And if you want to feel like 20 years younger in terms of your movement, just start stretching. That's my advice to anyone, because that's how it's made me feel, honestly. It's fantastic. Bruce, 3-1 Oilers. They beat the Ottawa Senators. It was a fairly high event game. Lots happened in the game, I guess, if you go by grade A shots, at least.
Yeah.
It was the 3-1 score. The Oilers had 26 grade A shots. The Senators had 10. So this game should have been a much bigger margin.
Ratio.
Yeah, it should have been a much bigger margin, though, of Oilers victory. They probably should have had, 6 goals, 5 or 6 or 7 goals. They had 11 5-alarm shots to 3 for the Senators. So it was a pretty dominating performance by the Oilers, but still it felt the game had a fairly lackluster feel to it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. It was one of those, like last game against Philly with all the beautiful goals and stuff. It was like, painting a Rembrandt. This one was more like painting the bathroom. And it was just, get the job done and, just get by. But they really didn't have a whole lot of. They got a lot of shots and stuff. It seemed like their touch at the killer moment was the pass didn't quite get through, or the shot was flubbed, or it got a ticked on the way by and didn't go where they wanted it to go. And there was a whole lot of that. And I guess some credit certainly goes to Ottawa for clogging up and collapsing to the net front and stuff. But I guess my fallback position is don't critique a win, so I'm not going to go too overboard on it. But this game was not the joy to watch that the last game was. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Here's the one play that for me typified the lackluster play. I think the score was either 2-0 or 2-1 at this point. It might have been 2-1, and McDavid got a 2-on-1 rush, I think, with Hyman. Maybe it was Nuge. Anyway, he charges in there, and man, he could have taken a shot. He could have made one of his moves, cutting into the slot, cutting across the slot, putting the puck on net. One of his, when he just has to score kind of moves. But instead, he made kind of a lackluster pass that got picked off. And it just struck me like if the Oilers, if they just really were desperate for a goal in that moment, he would have created some magic in that moment, and not gone for kind of the rope, and not a very good pass for him, especially in that situation. So that to me was just like everything seemed just a little bit off.
Yeah, agreed.
All night long. Although there was some good things, and this was, I think, it was a really strong defensive effort by the Oilers. I don't think that should be overlooked. I mean, you allow just 10 grade A shots and 3 5-alarm shots. That's pretty darn good.
8 of them in the second period, which really was a track meet. But so McDavid had 2 2-on-1s. He had one with Draisaitl right after the Oilers killed the penalty in the third. And it was 2-0, and a goal at that moment would have absolutely put the game to bed. And the defender kind of cheated for the pass, and McDavid tried to force it through, and it looked like, he had a clear shot from as close as he wanted to go. And he just tried to force it through anyway, and it did not work. And there was just some, the polish around the net was lacking a little bit. And, pretty hard to be too critical of when the team gets 46 shots on net, but they were just they were a lot of grade A minus chances, as I said
That's
to my
true.
son during the game. They were grade A's, but they weren't like super dangerous. So
Lots of
anyway,
dangerous ones though
never
too.
critique a win.
Yeah. Bruce, let's do our two good things, two bad things, two numbers, and one conundrum rundown of the game. What is your good thing?
Okay, my good thing. It's hard not to go with Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
Scoring all of the Edmonton goals in a win, netting the hat trick to give the Oilers, all the offense they needed on this night. The first goal was must have been just barely tipped of a Bouchard point shot on the late second period power play. The game was 0-0 until the 39th minute. And you wondered if that goal was ever going to come. And it was a play where Bouchard and Nugent Hopkins, Bouchard first made a play at the blue line to keep it in. And then he and Nugent Hopkins did a back and forth. And then Bush just sifted one in there from the blue line. And Hyman was parked in his usual spot. And the goal, you could hear the puck hit the post on the way in, but apparently it also ticked off of Hyman's stick, and maybe that's the reason that it found a little crack in the goalie, who was the excellent Anton Forsberg, who could almost be my good thing just by the mere fact this guy's back and playing in the NHL after the horrendous injury he suffered last year against the Oilers, against Zach Hyman, in fact, when Hyman got pushed into him and he tore both of his knees on the same play. Remember that?
Oh,
and they carried him off on a stretcher. It was awful. It was just brutal. So to see that guy back and playing as well as he did tonight that in itself was sort of a win, because you don't like to see that happen to anybody, especially the goalie. And so anyway, he got that one. Then early in the third, he jumped in on the wing, taking a very sharp lead pass again from Bouchard, and letting fly from distance. And this one was Forsberg's one big mistake of the night, that he went to get his blocker on it and he got a piece of it, but somehow the puck got through and dribbled into the corner of the net to make it 2-0. That was the eventual game winner. And then once the Sens cut the margin to 2-1, the Oilers got a late power play, and again it was Hyman in his office on the edge of the blue paint, and this time McDavid sifted a true pass right through on his tape that he was able to just tip home deftly into the top corner of the net to restore that 2-goal lead. And that, I think the last couple of minutes would have been pretty nervous without that 2-goal lead. Like, Ottawa was coming, and there were signs of crackage in the defensive zone that I was very relieved that third goal found the range. So for Hyman now, that makes 25 goals on the season. 25 goals, Zach Hyman. I mean, he's halfway to 50, and we're only at game number 36 out of 82. Like, he's just scoring at another level again. Like, he had a career year his first year in Edmonton. He stomped that in his second year in Edmonton, and now he's on the way of stomping that in his third year here. And he just keeps delivering the goods. And tonight, basically, the goods that he delivered was worth 2 points in the standings, which is the main points we're always concerned about.
He made major contributions to 12 grade A shots today, Bruce.
Oh, I know he had 8 shots.
6 on the power play and 6 at even strength. So nice. That's a really great game for. I think it led the team. I think McDavid had 11. Wow. I haven't checked the other players, but usually the McDavid's the main competition in that category. Mm-hmm. Just 1 assist for McDavid. He could have had more, but not to be. Yeah, so Hyman, in his first year here, 27 goals in 76 games. And we're all thinking, well, look at
Wow.
that. The Oilers really got their money's worth out of this guy. Like he's exactly came as advertised. He had his best scoring year in his NHL career, 54 points, best point total. And we're thinking that really worked out. Good playoff, 11 goals in 16 games in the playoffs. Then last year, 36 goals and 83 points in 79 games. And this year so far, 40 points and 25 goals. And it's 35 games for the
For
team
Hyman. Yeah,
for Hyman
36
and
for the team,
36 for the team.
35 for Hyman. That's
Yeah.
right.
So good for him. Last year he tapered off in the second half because he got injured.
He got hurt. Yeah.
And what I'm hoping is in his playoffs weren't as effective. He wasn't that effective in the playoffs. He was okay, but he wasn't the Zach Hyman that we saw in the first half. This year I want, like, of course, the Oilers don't have the luxury. They're going to be burning. They got to, keep the pedal on the metal all year long because of the crappy start. Yep. But Bruce, they are now in. You were just telling me before this all started. Where are they now? They're in the second wild card spot, tied with Arizona, but they're ahead of Arizona on points percentage, tied for points. Is that correct?
They are.
They won ahead of Arizona.
Bring this back up there. Yeah, they're in the second wild card spot by points, tied with St. Louis and Seattle, but with 2 games and 3 games respectively in hand on them. 1 point ahead of Arizona with 1 game in hand. So by percentage, they're even ahead of Nashville, who's 4 points ahead of Edmonton, but the Oilers have 4 games in hand. So they're 569, which is like suddenly better than the league average after that rotten 2-9-1 start. And they have the best record for all the teams outside of the top 3 in the 2 divisions are a ways in front of everybody. They got a lot of hard climbing to go to get to there. But they've already caught up with the wild card race, and currently by percentage, they're sitting on top of it.
Yeah, they did come back earlier, and they were close by points percentage. I think they were the 8th team. Yeah. For the wild, they were the bottom wild card team, 8th team in their conference previously, and then they lost 3 in a row.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that they've actually been on points. They fought their way back into a playoff spot. So congratulations, Edmonton Oilers. And I think when they got off to the good start with Knoblauch, we were guessing it would take about 2 or 3 months, right, for them to fight their way back into the playoff spot to make up the points. I think they were 6 or 7 points behind at that point. And it's finally, man, as much as they've won, it's been a long, hard battle to get back into that playoff spot, but they're there, Bruce, and now they got to just keep going, obviously. And we'll talk more about it, whether they can do that in a bit. But
keeping going is what they seem to be doing just now.
It sure is. 7 in a row. Amazing. Bruce, my good thing is the Oilers backchecking. And this came up earlier today when in the press conference, Ryan Rishaug of TSN asked Oilers coach Chris Knoblauch, things are going well, but what's 1 or 2 things you could improve upon? And he said something that really resonated with me because it's something that I've been harping on repeatedly. But Coach K said, quote, probably the one thing that the coaches find is defensive details. I think we've given up more chances off the rush than we'd like to. I know that was a point of emphasis when I first got here, and we probably slipped a little bit in that area. Typically, 5-on-5 goals are probably 45% of the goals come off line rush scores. So we just have to tighten that up. That's usually either D, pinching, or forwards, not back checking. And in the previous game, where they had won 5-2 over Tortorella's team there, the Flyers, the 2 goals against were both on. There had both been lazy back checking on both goals against, and in a very gentle, quiet way, Knoblauch identified a problem, Bruce. And to me, all year long, we've been talking about rush goals against, rush chances against, rush goals against. And the Oilers still, at this point, have given up more rush goals than they've scored. But tonight they were 8-2 on rush chances. They created 8 and they gave up only 2, and they scored the 1 goal. Hyman's goal was on a rush chance. Bouchard set him in, and he went in on kind of a partial break-in and whipped in the puck. So tonight, I was watching that closely to see what kind of response there might be from what Coach K said, and it was excellent. The Oilers really did a fantastic job of back-checking. I mean, there was one play where Fogle ran into Nurse, and that caused a rush against. So that was kind of a malfunction at the junction, a meeting of the minds, as Ed Whalen would say, when two people bang heads together. But so that was a weird play. But overall, this team really did focus tonight, and they have in the past. I think, and what I wrote in my post today, I think this is a big enough issue that if the Oilers don't get on top of back-checking on the rush, they're not going to get out of the second round. It'll be just like last year against Vegas. They're going to lose to a tighter checking team that can score in an opportunistic fashion, like Vegas. And if they do back check, Bruce, they'll win the Stanley Cup. I really believe that. I think this is it's clearly the best offensive team in the NHL. They can get the goals that they need. I think we're starting to see signals that the goaltending might well be there, but the goaltending tends to be there when you don't give up 2-on-1s and 3-on-1s and 3-on-2s. So I think if they back check hard this year, if these forwards make up their mind to have this habit, as they did in tonight's game and as they have in other games, that the Oilers will win the Cup this year. And it's really, to me, as straightforward as that. Back checking also includes, to me, in zone play where they're cycling the puck in the Oilers zone, and the centers have to mainly the centers have to help out in the slot, come back, check their man in the slot. So it's both things, coming back on the rush and on the cycle. And we saw they did a fine job of it tonight. They're capable of it. All this is hard work and defensive awareness, and it doesn't come easily to offensively gifted hockey players. But if they want to win the Stanley Cup, it's a key ingredient, and we saw it tonight.
Sure did. They're paying attention for the most part. I had some little problems with their ability to move the puck out of their own zone, and particularly get over their own blue line, which is a pet peeve of mine always when they can't get the puck out. But it wasn't because there was nobody around. They had the puck surrounded so often. Even when Ottawa, were able to keep it in, they weren't able to get shots through. And Edmonton did a good job in the lanes. I thought Cody Ceci had an absolutely fantastic possible goal-saving shot block against the Tim Stützle rocket on that power play Ottawa had in the third period. And that was with, 9 or 10 minutes left. That would have potentially made it 2-1 with, a fair bit of time on the clock. And they came up with some big defensive stance. And forwards back checking, it helps when you're not outnumbered. I'm sure every defenseman will tell you that. You're a D-man yourself, this.
Yeah. The most of the Senators, 6 of the 10 chances from the Senators came off forechecks. They're forechecking. And to give the Senators some credit here, they're not a great offensive team, but they really worked hard on the forecheck in the second period. They went to work, and they were kind of desperate. They were playing with some desperation, I thought, for a spurt in the second period. And they got a number of really good scoring chances off the forecheck. And I do was the goal, and we'll get into the goal in a second. I think the goal was scored on the forecheck too. I think he won the puck on the forecheck, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, we haven't even graded that one, so it might have been that was another forecheck chance, I think, for the. I think he won the
No,
puck.
it certainly wasn't a rush out. He just drove along the goal line. And
yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk more about that.
Bruce, what is your bad thing?
Yeah, I'm going to go off script, and I'm going to carp at Sportsnet's persistent inability to cover face-offs. Man,
Yeah.
it just drives me nuts. You know, they go for a TV timeout. You got 2 minutes. You got a 90-second commercial. You got 30 seconds before they're going to drop the puck. So I get that they're trying to stuff as much content as they possibly can in between the whistles. Show us 3 or 4 or 5 different replays, or show 5 different angles of the same play, and then scan along the bench, and you see this little clock in the corner, and it's running because I already dropped the damn puck. I want to see the hockey game, Sportsnet. Show me the hockey game, right? The replays, great, but they shouldn't overrun the game itself. Sometimes I'd like to even see the build-up before the face-off. Who's lining up against who? What's going on in the circle? You know, and I don't know how many draws they made. It seemed like the whole third period. I mean, you got a 2-1 game in the third period. Why would you want to watch D-zone face-off?
I think just as a general critique, Bruce, more of an overall focus on the game in general.
Yeah.
Both in the commentary,
yes,
in the play-by-play. Who's got the puck? You know, just always just focus on that. It's hard to get that right. It's hard to call that right. It's hard to call that with passion and accuracy, fairness and accuracy at the same time. And with the commentary, just focus on the play and show us the play. Do the basic things right. And I think they get a little caught up in being sometimes, you know, I don't know, like personalities.
Chattiness.
What's that?
Chattiness.
Yeah, chatty Cathy's like just focus on the play. And what you're pointing out is, well, for you and I, you know, who we need to know if they lost a face-off. We want to see what happened because we're trying to judge.
Well,
we're trying to judge.
Game. We're trying to.
Yeah, well, like any other fan, and we're trying to we're just like any other fan. We're trying to watch hockey, but we're also breaking down the statistics of the major scoring chances. If we don't see the face-off, now usually if there's a good scoring chance, they do eventually show the face-off. Like in the replay, 3 minutes later, you'll probably get the face-off then. But it is, I agree. I really like the way the British do it with soccer. There's just usually there's not even a color commentator.
There's one guy.
There has been in the past. It's one guy announcing the play. And all he sometimes just says is the names of the players. Like there's not like we're watching it. We do want to identify who's taking the shot. Often these guys don't get who's taking the shot. Because I think they're not they're just not zeroed in anyway. There's a lot of good work by all of these announcers as well. I don't want to be too critical, but if they're looking to improve, this is how I would suggest they can improve. And they do a lot right. They're highly skilled at their work. But they could get better at that.
My other pet peeve, and this relates directly to our project, and I'm sure you have the same one, is the number of times they take the score bug off the screen to replace it with other extraneous information. Like, how about you put the score bug in one corner and you put the extraneous information in another corner, or better yet, show the extraneous information during the stoppages instead of always during the play. And show the clock, like it's so fundamental to the game. So anyway, pet peeves.
I agree, Bruce.
Show me the game. Show me the face-off. Show me the score bug.
Yeah, the basic information is really what we're there for. Yeah, and it's hopefully dramatic enough and interesting enough, compelling enough that's what you're selling. And
yeah.
All right, my bad thing is the one goal that the Senators scored, and bad because Stuart Skinner was going for a shutout. That's always great for a goalie to get a shutout, and he's 5 minutes away from a shutout. And Ekholm got beat out of the corner by Tkachuk, and then Bouchard, strangely, he was in front of the net, and I thought I saw him shoulder check to see if there's anyone coming in, and so he played it as if there was someone who was open for a pass on the other side, which is the right way to play it. Like someone's coming from the side like that, you kind of let the goalie take it. You got to take away that pass because that pass is deadly dangerous. But there was no one coming. Maybe maybe he wasn't certain of that, so he kind of held back in the slot and let Tkachuk charge into the slot, and then he and Adam Erne let both of those guys let the goal scorer into the slot. Parker Kelly, I think is his name.
Yep.
And
yeah, pretty good game, Parker Kelly.
So he just jammed it in. It was obviously the right call that was a goal. I don't know why it was much of a controversy. It was clearly a goal. There was no, Tkachuk didn't hit the goalie in any significant. I didn't think he hit him at all. He just jammed his stick in, which you're allowed to do when you're trying to score. And the Oilers just, Ekholm's first breakdown wasn't great. It's not like Ekholm's been playing fantastic hockey and fantastic defensive hockey, but that was not a moment. That was not an example of that. And then Erne and Bouchard, they start, they didn't block or cover anybody, either of them. So not a stellar moment in front of the net. And Evan Bouchard, to his credit, had 3 points and was critical to the victory with a fantastic shot on Hyman's goal, and then a great pass to set up Hyman on the second goal. So Bouchard now has 39 points, Bruce, in 36 games. He's well on his way to my prediction of 90 points for Evan Bouchard this season. And on that note, if you've been listening to this podcast for years, you'll notice that now and then I've often made a comparison to Larry Murphy. But now and then, when I'm particularly enthused about Evan Bouchard, I've compared him to Sergei Zubov. And I do note, Bruce, you've always kind of not said a whole lot and maybe had a slight look of incredulity on your face. I have noticed when I've made that comparison. But I will say,
I understand some of it.
Craig McTavish made the comparison Monday night on Oilers Now.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, he said Bouchard reminds him of Sergei Zubov. So there you go.
Yeah. Sergei Zubov could look like he was out having a smoke. And the puck would come to him. And the puck would be off his stick and onto another Dallas Stars stick, racing up the ice. And some opponent would take a run at him and never hit him. He was incredible at avoiding hits. Or if he did he was like Gretzky. If he did get hit, he would just go with the hit. And the other guy would wind up, hitting more wall than opponent.
He is more agile than Evan Bouchard will ever be, right? Like,
yes.
So I'm not saying it's.
Yeah, they're not the same player, but they do have things in common. And calmness under pressure is one of those things, almost to a fault in Bouchard's case. Well, I'll give Bouchard a lot of credit tonight. He took one awful smack to the face at the end of the second period, right off what they called the turnbuckle. I think just the join between two pieces of glass. And it was a real weird hit. It wasn't involving a stick or anything, but his head smashed into the glass, and he got cut up pretty good. And he came back in the third period and got 2 more points after that. So good on him for toughing it out.
Zubov, 1,068 games, 771 points. His top year, 93-94 with the Rangers when he had 89 points in 78 games and 19 points in 22 playoff games. They won the Stanley Cup. So that guy was a hell of a hockey player. He really was. And again, I do think he's more agile than Bouchard, but what they have in common is exceptional calmness with the puck, exceptional passing and shooting ability. Bouchard shoots the puck, I think, better than Zubov did, but Zubov was a more agile player. But this year, especially now with his Paul confidence, Evan Bouchard is carrying the puck very, very well and trying to make plays. Of course, he got one picked off his stick in the first minute of the game there by Stutzla, and it almost ended up as a goal against. But that's what happens if you're going to try to make plays with the puck. You're now and then going to give it up like that. Bruce, what is your? You gave your bad thing. Now it's mine. No, I just gave my bet thing. What's your
Yeah,
number
you
or the
did.
numbers?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Stu Skinner, who, since his worst showing of the season, which was November 22nd in Carolina, when he gave in 4 goals in the first 15 minutes of the game and got pulled. And Calvin Pickard came in after playing the previous game in Florida. He played, most of 2 straight games, Pickard. And at that point, people were very nervous because the Oilers had given up, I think, 17 goals in 3 games to Tampa, Florida, Carolina. There were some empty netters and stuff, but the Oilers was getting 3 and 4 a game and losing in regulation because they couldn't keep it out of their own net. And when Skinner got pulled, and people were going, "We got to make a trade. We got to get a real NHL goalie in here. Skinner's lost the plot." Okay, well, that was November 22nd. Since then, Skinner has played 14 games, all starts. The Oilers won 12 and lost 2 of those games. Skinner's running a .926 save percentage and a 2.00 goals against average, actually 1.997 goals against average. And he's given up 28 goals in 14 games, and there was 1 overtime period in there, so he actually played slightly more than 60 per game. And that's just stellar. And he had 2 shutouts in there, 1, 2, 3, plus tonight 4 1-goal games, 3 2-goal games. So that's 9 of the 14 games where the Oilers gave up 2 or fewer goals. Well, guess what? They won all those games. And when your goalkeeper is keeping the other guys below 3 with this club, I like their chances. And Skinner has been consistently strong and occasionally stellar. And
Yeah, he's been a lot better, Bruce. I really think team defense has been a lot better.
Yep, no
They're
doubt.
not
It's part
they're
of it
not
for
giving
sure.
up ugly chances that they did as many of them as they
And
did in the
he's not
past.
giving up ugly goals. And,
He isn't either. He's playing well, and the
so,
defense is playing well, and he's a good first shot goalie. Is my take on Stuart Skinner. Bruce, my number is around. It's a bit of a conundrum as well. We're going to have the double conundrum tonight.
okay.
So when it comes to rush chances, if you go for the whole year, the Oilers have had even strength. The Oilers have had 58% of the grade A shots on the rush this year. So they've had, I got an ad covering up my numbers here.
Does this include tonight or?
This does not include tonight. No. Give me 1 second. I got to scroll down a bit.
They did get a rush goal tonight, didn't they?
They did. So this does not include tonight. Okay, so heading in tonight, they have had 205 rush chances at even strength, and the opposite grade A shots, and the opposition has had 149. So the Oilers have had 58%. When it comes to the subset that are 5 alarm chances, the very best of those, it's 102 to 75. And that gives the Oilers 68% of those. I hope my math is correct. But when it comes to goals, the Oilers have had 39 goals, now 40, and they've given up 47. So they're getting way more chances on the rush and way more of the best chances on the rush, but they're not scoring as much on the rush. And I thought, this is really interesting. Now it could be that we're not grading the very, very highest caliber of scoring chance, and the opposition's getting more of those. So that's one possibility. What I have noticed, this is just anecdotally, is that Skinner and Campbell and Pickard, their strength isn't that when the most dangerous shot on a rush chance is when it's passed across seam pass and the one-timer shot. And there's been a lot of goals against the Oilers on that particular kind of play. We actually haven't counted that. might go over the goals against and just have a look at that. But the they're scoring a lot more goals. So what I notice is the opposition is the Oilers' defense has been till recently much less able to stop those cross teams pass on the 2-on-1. So the Oilers are getting a lot of grade A shots, but it's the puck carrier goes in and getting the grade A shot. He's not able to get the pass across, which has happened much more often, I believe, with the opposition. So I think that they are getting a higher quality of chance. And I think also that the Oilers goalies are not acrobatic goalies. They're bigger guys, and their strength isn't throwing their body across the crease to make the big save. And they've been getting out goalied essentially on rush chances as well. So that's why I think we're seeing that higher rate of goals. Could just be luck. Would be the third thing, right? Just some puck luck. What do you make of it, Bruce?
Yeah. Did you say 102, 4, and 75 against?
For 5 alarms.
5, yeah, that's 58%.
Okay.
68. 68 would be over 2-1, which would be really, really high. I'm just looking at natural stat trick, and that's in all situations, right?
Yeah.
And natural
is even strength, all situations.
Oh, that's even strength. Okay, right. We're doing that. Yeah, well, according to natural stat trick, Edmonton's number 1 in the league in high danger chance percentage, both at 5-on-5 and in all situations, and they're running around 58, 59% in both, which is excellent. And their conversion rate is lower than that, but at one point it was dismal. Like they were running like 40% goal share when they were having 60% chance share. And now that, they're catching up and the mean is being regressed towards hard. Yeah. And they are now well over 50% goal share. And it's just not in the 60% range yet. But they're literally number 1 in the NHL in high danger chances and expected goals, which would be a related stat. And they're 11th in goal share at 53%, which is good, but it's not 60, right, or 58. Yeah. But it's also not 40 like it was. So that the bad start is still dragging down those numbers some, but they're fighting back, and they're on the right side of the they're above the water line and gaining ground and regularly. I mean, they're winning games. Obviously, they're outscoring their opponents in the process.
Yeah. So I guess it's 58% for both the grade A shots and the 5 alarm shots, but then just 45% of the goals heading into the game. Well, why do you think that is, Bruce? Why do you think the reason is for the difference in percentages? The fact that all year long in total they've had so many more rush chances, but still a lower percentage of goals.
Well, most of the reason is embedded in the first month of the season. And when everything was going wrong, and they were, 26th in the league in goals for, and they've been first since then, and they were first last year. And it was just, they were so out of sorts. And, they were making major mistakes, and they weren't making killer finishing plays at the good end of the ice either. I mean, it still shows up here in high danger goals. They're 14th in the league at 52%. High danger chances, number 1 in the league at 59%. Okay. So again, they're not converting as many grade A chances as they're creating. They have a surplus of almost 3-2, and they're just barely outscoring on the season. But again, they've corrected from where they were, and they're starting to.
My memory of the first part of the year is they had terrible goaltending themselves, and they ran into a lot of hot goaltending at the other end of the ice. So that probably
had bad bounces, and and the other teams were just when they gave up an odd man rush, the other teams were executing everything. Yeah. And nowadays, sometimes the other team messes up too, or the Oilers get a bounce, or something goes right. And for that first month, it seemed like nothing was was bouncing their way.
Yeah. Seems like a long time ago, which is a good thing. There's been a lot of winning since then from the Oilers.
Well, they were saying tonight that Chris Knobloch, I think they say, was the first coach in history to have 2 7-game winning streaks in his first 25 games behind the bench or something. Something bizarre like that, anyway.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to our second conundrum, Bruce, which is the Oilers are on their second 7-game win streak. And I guess what everyone's wondering is, like, can they keep this up? How long can they keep this up for? So their next games are against Chicago, Detroit, Montreal, and then they go on the road, and they're against Toronto. I think
the next 3 are on the road. That's a road trip.
Okay, the way they're listed on this
Google sometimes they show them first.
I see. Okay, I was going by that. I was incorrect. So these are all on the road, Bruce? The Chicago, Detroit, and Montreal?
Yeah. They're going Toronto to 3 original. And Toronto is here, and Seattle is here.
And then they play the Flames.
And then they play the Flames on Hockey Day in Canada in the late game.
Okay.
And that's in Calgary.
Just let's. So then they play the Flames. And then they play the Blue Jackets, the Blackhawks, and the Preds. So that's 9 games until they have their break, Bruce.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think their record's going to be overall in those 9 games?
Well, I'd like to think they can win 7 of them. And, that sounds aggressive. And I mean, it is in that NHL teams can rise up at almost any time. But I mean, they're playing Chicago twice in that span. And Chicago is down 7 regular forwards now from a lineup that never was that strong to begin with. They lost Connor Bedard last night to injury. And then they lost Nick Foligno trying to stand up for Bedard and fight on his behalf. And he broke his finger. Shades of Ethan Morrow, so he's out. They got Taylor Hall is out. They got Corey Perry that's no longer even on the team, and that, on and on. So they're the team that they're icing at the moment. I mean, if the Oilers can't beat that team on Tuesday night, anything's possible. But I would be frankly shocked for that to occur, even as a road game.
Okay, so that's one.
That's one.
They got some. Okay, listen. The Red Wings will be tough. The Canadians can always be tough, right?
Yep, on Saturday night.
The Leafs will be tough. The Kraken will be tough because they're in playoff contention. The Flames will be tough because they're always tough, are often tough. The Blue Jackets, that's usually a team that the Oilers match up well against, but you never know. Then the Blackhawks again, and the Predators. There's about 5 or 6 fairly tough games there that can go either way.
Right.
I will. Of course, I want them to win all the games, but I will go with 6-3 in this spell. That said, Bruce, I think I am being conservative, and I say this because the Oilers have been utterly dominant at even strength under Knobloch. Essentially, they've just been kicking the crap out of other teams at even strength. It's seldom close in games. And that's a signal of a really good team. And this is a team that's been scorched badly. And I think learned a really hard lesson about defensive play early in the year, and also realized how alarming it can be if you leave your goalie hanging out to dry, just how bad things can go. So I think this is a group that's really ripe to hear Knobloch's message about defensive play and the solid decisions and solid back checking. And they've been doing it very consistently since he took over. And there's a bit of backsliding there, which is why he brought it up. But 7-2, that'd be good. I just, it would be fantastic.
6-1-2 would accomplish the same thing,
Yeah.
14 points. I mean, when you get to overtime, obviously you want to win it. but an overtime loss is less of a disaster than a regulation loss is. And the problem this year is the Oilers haven't been able to limit the losses to one. When they do lose, they always seem to lose 3 or even 4 in a row. And so they've had just one of those, 8 in a row wins, 3 losses, 7 in a row wins. Well, you can take those 3 losses when they're surrounded by 15 wins, but it'd still be nice to nip losing streaks in the bud at one game. And it would be nice to at least sometimes get, half a loaf, is it, or a third of a loaf out of a 3-point game, and at least, roll the dice in overtime. You're not always going to come out on top, but you're always going to at least have something to show for it.
7-2 or 6-3 would, they fought their way into a playoff spot. Either of those records would really put them in a good place heading down the stretch. Anything less than that, they're going to just be battling away. 5-4, you're going to be battling away, right? You cannot have that. So, but this is an excellent team, and they're doing a lot of things well. And if their power play really gets cooking at some point, like really takes off, and they get power plays, that could also propel them to more wins. But at even strength, this team's a juggernaut, Bruce. They're outstanding.
Well, after the break, they come right back with a 3-game roadie at Vegas, Anaheim, and Los Angeles. So 2 very tough games in there. 1 home game, then another 3-game trip to St. Louis, Dallas, and Arizona, pardon me. 3 tough teams that are all in the playoff picture. And so you'd like to think, they're going to find a way to win some of those games, but they're not just going to cakewalk and beat everybody in that stretch. So the better time to be doing that is just keep doing what they're doing right now in this coming stretch of games and really get a good bit of a cushion in there.
They say winning streaks come to an end because bad habits start to form. Well, I'm seeing actually good habits, generally speaking. There was good habits, at least in tonight's game. Like, they didn't show signals of bad habits. So now there was a couple against the Flyers, but again, they're overwhelming that with offensive play right now. And if they also then up their defensive game, if they really take that seriously, then this team could cruise into the playoffs still. It's a possibility. They could just keep winning at a similar rate, not quite this high rate that they've had overall, but 2 out of 3 games they could win for the rest of the year. And that wouldn't surprise me, because that's what I thought we would see all year, honestly, because this is a fantastic hockey team. Well, Bruce, you got the game grades. Let's leave it there so you can get it to work.
Hard at it.
Thanks for talking tonight.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.